Before Wall Street existed, before the Statue of Liberty welcomed immigrants to America, and before the United States was even a country, New York was Dutch. Its people spoke Dutch, its merchants traded under Dutch laws, its harbor was filled with Dutch ships, and for nearly half a century, one of the most strategically important locations in North America belonged to the Dutch Republic. Yet today, most people have no idea that New York began as a Dutch colony called New Amsterdam. Even more surprising is what happened next. The Dutch did not lose New York in a great battle. They did not watch it burn to the ground. Instead, they eventually gave it up and focused their attention elsewhere. Looking back today, that sounds like one of the worst deals in history. But was it really? To understand why the Dutch let New York go, we first need to travel back to the beginning. In the early 17th century, the Dutch Republic was one of the most powerful trading nations on Earth. Dutch ships sailed to Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, and the Americas. Amsterdam had become one of the world's richest cities, and Dutch merchants were searching for new opportunities wherever profit could be found. In 1609, an English explorer named Henry Hudson entered the service of the Dutch East India Company. He was tasked with finding a shorter route to Asia. Instead, he sailed into a vast river on the eastern coast of North America. Today, that river bears his name, the Hudson River. Although Hudson never found a route to Asia, his voyage revealed something valuable. The region was rich in fur-bearing animals, particularly beavers. At the time, beaver pelts were incredibly valuable in Europe because they were used to make fashionable hats. The Dutch quickly recognized an opportunity. Over the following years, Dutch traders established trading posts along the Hudson River. In 1621, the Dutch West India Company was founded to manage Dutch activities in the Atlantic world. Soon afterward, the colony of New Netherland was established. Its most important settlement would become New Amsterdam. The location was ideal. At the mouth of the Hudson River, ships could easily access the interior of North America while remaining connected to the Atlantic Ocean. Trade flowed through the harbor, and the settlement became the center of Dutch activity in the region. According to tradition, in 1626, Governor Peter Minuit negotiated with local indigenous people to acquire Manhattan Island. For generations, people claimed that the Dutch bought Manhattan for just $24. In reality, the story is more complicated. The transaction likely involved goods worth around 60 Dutch guilders. More importantly, the indigenous people and the Dutch may have had very different ideas about land ownership and what the agreement actually meant. Regardless of the details, the Dutch established their settlement on Manhattan and began building a colony. At first, New Amsterdam was small. It was little more than a frontier outpost, but it grew steadily. Wooden houses appeared along dirt roads. Warehouses were constructed near the waterfront. Ships arrived carrying goods, settlers, and supplies. Unlike many colonies founded by other European powers, New Amsterdam quickly became remarkably diverse. Dutch settlers lived alongside Germans, Scandinavians, French Protestants, Jews, Africans, and English colonists. More than a dozen languages could be heard on its streets. The colony's leaders often cared more about commerce than religious conformity. As long as people contributed to trade and economic growth, many were welcomed. In many ways, New Amsterdam was already becoming the multicultural city that New York would later become. But despite its growth, New Amsterdam faced a serious problem. It sat directly between England's northern and southern colonies. To the north were English settlements in New England. To the south were colonies such as Virginia. The Dutch colony effectively split England's Atlantic possessions in two. As tensions between England and the Dutch Republic increased, New Netherland became an obvious target. By the 1660s, England and the Dutch Republic were rivals in trade, shipping, and colonial expansion. Both nations wanted dominance at sea. Both wanted control of global commerce. Conflict seemed inevitable. In 1664, King Charles II granted New Netherland to his brother James, the Duke of York. There was only one problem. The territory was still Dutch. That did not stop England. Later that year, 4 English warships sailed into New Amsterdam's harbor. The colony's governor, Peter Stuyvesant, wanted to resist. Stuyvesant was a determined and stubborn leader. He believed the Dutch should defend the colony, but many of the colony's residents disagreed. The settlement was poorly defended. Its population was diverse. Many residents felt little loyalty to the Dutch government. Others feared that resistance would lead to destruction. As the English fleet prepared to attack, citizens pressured Stuyvesant to surrender. Reluctantly, he agreed. Without a major battle, New Amsterdam passed into English hands. The English renamed it New York in honor of the Duke of York. After decades of Dutch control, the colony seemed lost forever, or so it appeared, because the story was not over. A few years later, another war erupted between England and the Dutch Republic. This conflict would produce one of the greatest naval victories in Dutch history. In 1673, Dutch warships crossed the Atlantic and recaptured New York. The English were expelled. The Dutch flag once again flew over Manhattan. The city was renamed New Orange in honor of William of Orange. For a brief moment, the Dutch had reclaimed their colony. Today, many people have never heard about this chapter of the story. Most assume that once New Amsterdam became New York, Dutch rule ended permanently. In reality, the Dutch successfully took it back, but they would not keep it. The following year, the war ended. Negotiations began. Both sides needed peace. The result was the Treaty of Westminster in 1674. Under the agreement, the Dutch formally recognized English control of New York. In exchange, they secured other colonial interests elsewhere in the world. This is where modern hindsight often creates confusion. People today look at New York and assume the Dutch made a terrible mistake. After all, New York became one of the richest and most influential cities on Earth. Wall Street emerged as a center of global finance. Millions of people settled there. Its economy eventually became larger than that of many nations. So why would anyone willingly give it up? The answer lies in understanding the world as it existed in the 17th century. At the time, New York was not the city we know today. It was a relatively small colonial settlement. Its future was uncertain. No one knew it would become a global metropolis. Meanwhile, another Dutch possession appeared far more valuable: Suriname. Located on the northern coast of South America, Suriname possessed fertile land ideal for sugar production. Sugar was one of the most profitable commodities in the world. European demand was enormous. Plantations generated huge revenues. From the perspective of 17th century merchants and politicians, Suriname looked like the better investment. New York offered potential. Suriname offered immediate profits. The Dutch made a rational decision based on the information available at the time, and for many years, that decision seemed entirely justified. History, however, has a way of surprising everyone. Over the following centuries, New York exploded in size and importance. Its harbor became one of the busiest in the world. Immigrants arrived from every corner of the globe. Trade, finance, and industry transformed the city into an economic giant. Skyscrapers rose where Dutch settlers once built wooden houses. Wall Street became synonymous with global finance. The city grew into one of humanity's greatest urban centers. Looking back, it is easy to laugh at the Dutch decision, but that ignores an important truth. Nobody in the 17th century could see the future. The Dutch did not give away New York because they were foolish. They did not lose it because they were weak. They made a decision that made sense in their own time. Yet even though they surrendered control of the city, the Dutch legacy never disappeared. It remains hidden throughout New York. Brooklyn derives from the Dutch town of Breukelen. Harlem comes from Haarlem. Staten Island was named after the Dutch States General. Many place names throughout the region preserve traces of Dutch influence. Even the spirit of commerce that helped define New York can be traced back to the merchants who first built New Amsterdam. Today, millions of people walk through New York without realizing they are walking through the legacy of a forgotten Dutch city. Beneath the skyscrapers, beneath the traffic, and beneath the modern skyline lies the story of New Amsterdam, a small Dutch settlement that helped shape one of the world's greatest cities. The Dutch may have given up New York, but in many ways, New York never stopped being Dutch. If you enjoyed this story, Make sure to subscribe to The Dutch Archaeologist for more incredible stories from Dutch and world history. And let me know in the comments, do you think the Dutch made the right decision, or was giving up New York the greatest missed opportunity in history?